The late, great Bill Buckley famously quipped that I'm obliged to confess I should sooner live in a society governed by the first 2,000 names in the Boston telephone directory than in a society governed by the 2,000 faculty members of Harvard. He wasn't wrong, but now that's actually a proposal coming from the pages of the New York Times. The original headline on this op-ed by a Wharton School psychology professor, Adam Grant is his name. The original headline, elections are bad for democracy. And then it was changed to the worst people run for office, it's time for a better way. Yeah, that's a little softer approach. Here's what Professor Grant offers. On the eve of the first debate of the 2024 presidential race, trust in government is rivaling historic lows. Officials have been working hard to safeguard elections and assure citizens of their integrity. But if we want public office to have integrity, we might be better off eliminating elections altogether. If you think that sounds anti-democratic, small d, think again. And his think again is, hey, in ancient Athens, they did sortition, which is what he's proposing here, a lottery, from a pool of candidates. So you get a pool of candidates and you randomly pick numbers, and instead of winning Powerball, you win a Senate seat. This, representative Republican form of government is messy business, isn't it? The many features that Adam Grant suggests this has, including no boundaries to gerrymander, no electoral college to dispute, and doing a lottery for your government officials is better because systematically selected leaders can undermine group goals. Oh, isn't that a statement? Systematically selected leaders, meaning you voting for your representatives, can undermine group goals. Which group's goals? Is that where we're at? Let's go back to that question about whether or not Trump thinks that a civil war is in the offing. For more on this and last night's debate and the state of the presidential race and the culture, Noah Rothman, senior writer at National Review, the outlet founded by Bill Buckley, author of The Rise of the New Puritans, Fighting Back Against Progressives' War on Fun. Noah, thanks for joining us again. Appreciate it.
My pleasure. Thanks for having me.
So what do you think? Go to a lottery? The American people love their lotteries, so why not a lottery for your government officials?
So first, I've written for the New York Times opinion page, and it's a grueling process. And what you fear most is that an editor will throw a deadly headline onto something that you've written and spend all this time thinking about, trying to be nuanced and cautious about it. So you'll write, we should reform the education system, and the editorial headline will be like, are children better off on their own? No, not what I said. You sabotaged me. But I kind of said, I'm sure Dr. Grant is a very well-read individual who knows his field very well and probably knows that what he's describing is Athenian democracy. And that's how they did it in ancient Athens. They got some stones out. All of a sudden, you're on the council. And the founders were terrified of Athenian democracy. It killed Socrates. It descended into dictatorship. And if you read your Montesquieu or your Madison,
Adam Grant didn't mention that part. He didn't mention the outcome part of the sortition approach to governance.
I mean, it's an interesting thought exercise, a thought experiment, but that's about all it amounts to. It's kind of a vanity project in that sense.
All right, so we're going to stick to elections in your mind. You think that's the better way to go? Yeah, have the public participate.
Well, it works all right.
So
far so good.
The New York Times is the leading light of the intellectual left, so I just don't want to dismiss it out of hand. We have to address this because these are serious people.
Yeah. Very judicious.
Yes, thank you very much. All right, so last night's debate, a lot of the talk is about Vivek Ramaswamy, but it seemed to me that the person who had the most to lose and needed to do the best was Ron DeSantis to sort of reset the table of this being Trump versus DeSantis as the ultimate choice. Yeah, I don't know if you agree with that premise, but your general rating of DeSantis's performance and whether or not he got back or started to get back to where he was at the beginning of the year vis-a-vis Trump.
I do agree with your assessment. I think he turned in a passable performance. I think he was consistently hitting singles all night long. No real standout moments, with the possible exception of one at the end of this exchange over January 6th, where the audience really ate it up when he said, we need to just kind of move on and get past it. But I think he came off very rehearsed and very practiced, and was swinging for the fences often with the attempt to generate a viral moment with 3 or 4 second sound bites. It was pretty transparent. But that's probably what he needed to do. Ahead of the debate, I wrote this piece based on media's expectations, and the press is clearly very bored with the DeSantis campaign. They've done him to death. They've declared him dead. They've noted his spending habits, his profligacy of the campaign. They're burning through funds. Polls aren't great, and they're getting worse nationally. And they're just over it. So they moved on to the new hotness. That's Vivek.
Right.
There's a big piece in the Washington Post about how all the candidates are going to train their fire on Vivek, and Vivek, he's moving up in the national polls. He's the gateway drug for the post-Trump moment, but all the voters will gravitate back to Trump eventually. So they're all going to train their fire on him. And it struck me as the most bored media August narrative in desperate pursuit of something akin to drama in this race. They couldn't possibly, the Republican field couldn't possibly internalize that, couldn't see it in their own data to the extent that they would pass over Donald Trump's most viable alternative in the race. Highest polling much stronger in the early states than nationally, but definitely a clear second place. Best funded by a mile, guy sitting on a mountain of cash, huge organization in Iowa, pretty strong organization in New Hampshire and South Carolina. It's not like this guy's going to implode tomorrow. And you're going to pass him over in favor of this, flavor of the week? Really?
Well, but it was interesting.
What happened?
It was interesting that the candidates on stage did the same thing. I mean, it was Vivek, as you were saying, Vivek versus Pence, Vivek versus Haley, Vivek versus Christie, and nobody decided to take any time to challenge DeSantis, even when I can't know from it was Bear McCallum, but basically prompted Nikki Haley to go after Ron DeSantis on Ukraine. She wouldn't.
Well, and they're living in the same milieu in which we're living. They have all this, they have a lot of big, top-heavy data operations, but they're as attuned to media narratives and the chatter on Twitter as we are. In fact, probably more so. And they sense, minute vibrations in the environment and overreact to them.
Yeah.
So, yeah, I think they're absolutely internalizing this, what I think is pretty much a media narrative, that this is the guy to beat now. And the best funding, best polling alternative to Donald Trump is old hat, definitely going to collapse of his own weight. I mean, we don't really have a ton of evidence of that. It's more or less a premise that's been manufactured. Ron DeSantis has not been overperforming. We should be very clear about that. And I don't think he overperformed last night. I think he did what he had to do. But he hit his marks. And what these Republican candidates who are vying for the nomination would need to do, if they were doing the race for second place thing that we saw in 2016, is displace all the anti-Trump alternatives and set yourself up for a one-on-one with Donald Trump. And Ron DeSantis is the guy to beat if that is the strategy. So maybe it's not the strategy.
All right. So, Noah Rothman, were there any debate moments that changed your mind about a certain candidate?
The only candidate who had some real standout moments I thought that kind of changed my mind was Nikki Haley. She has been running a very lackluster campaign so far and a very risk-averse campaign. She has so far tried to appeal to everybody and therefore appeal to nobody. What she did last night that I thought was interesting, and I'll probably write this up, is to treat us all like adults. Mm-hmm. Novel, right? She reminded the audience, at the risk of offending them, that Donald Trump is going to be consumed with his legal problems. Whether that's just, fair, or reasonable, doesn't matter. It is what is going to happen. She talked about an abortion compromise, the necessity of an abortion compromise, and reminded voters that the power of our will alone will not incept into federal law restrictions on abortions that Congress doesn't approve of. Congress gets a vote.
Yeah, but
She reminded us about the debt. I'm sorry, continue.
Well, just to interrupt on the abortion piece, but that exchange she had with Pence on that issue was disingenuous, where she sort of chastised him, because we're not going to get a federal abortion ban, and maybe we shouldn't try. But the idea that you can't pass anything at the federal level with respect to abortion, because we've never had whatever she said, we haven't had 60 senators in 100 years. She's wrong. She's just wrong on the facts. I mean, they passed and George W. Bush signed into law the Born Alive Infant Protection Act. That happened 20 years ago. So, you could do incremental things at the federal level, not a 15 or a 6-week ban, but there are other things you could do.
But that's exactly what she said. And then she followed up on that question and said, why can't we ban late-term abortions? Why can't we increase adoption rates? Why can't we do this? Why can't we do that? The sort of stuff that can pass at the state level and certainly probably can pass at the federal level. What she said is that there's no congressional support right now and probably in the foreseeable future for anything short of a 15-week ban, and maybe not even a 15-week ban, but she certainly didn't say heartbeat bills are viable in Congress, and they are not.
Yeah, I understand.
Right.
Republicans want to hear that the power of will alone and the bully pulpit can muscle this into existence. It cannot.
But the left is going to lie and just say, if a Republican becomes president, there's going to be a federal ban on all abortions.
Yeah, well, that's nonsense.
Right.
And, we should definitely be calling out their nonsense. And there's definitely there's a sense among some Republicans who are discomfited by the idea of a contest between Republicans and Donald Trump and say we should train all our fire on Democrats. But now is the time to start arguing against Democratic politicians. It's not. You're in the middle of a primary. It's time to establish distinctions between you and your opponents, not your general election opponent or the party to which he belongs. Yeah,
no, I agree with that. With respect to distinguishing themselves yesterday, just going back to DeSantis again, because his, in my view, lackluster performance so far is a bit surprising, given all the runway he had leading up to his announcement. One of the things that just continues to bedevil me, even while he's got some people that are out supporting him that are sort of attacking Trump, where is Chip Roy, for example, or other surrogates to be out there for DeSantis, saying some of the things that you've said, that actually Selena Zito has said too, about the operation in Iowa, and it's reminding people it's a state by state, and you're within shouting distance in Iowa, and if DeSantis were able to close in Iowa over the next 5 months and win Iowa, then it changes the nature of the race, and he loses momentum going to New Hampshire, so on and so forth. Long way to go, rather than just sort of throwing out the long way to go kind of thing without an explanation that people can grab onto and say, okay, I understand, and maybe let's not let the media rush us into a decision here. Let's watch this play out. Let's give this some time to breathe. Let's tune in and not turn out. But I just don't see anything from DeSantis, the campaign, sort of pulling people in, other than maybe those knocking on doors in Iowa.
Yeah, I think that's true. I think it's fair, and I think it's probably the primary deficit to his campaign strategy. Clearly, DeSantis came into this race with the idea that if he could roughly mimic Donald Trump's affect and personality and policy preferences, that he could peel off MAGA voters, build his own small competing base of MAGA voters, and then present Trump-skeptical Republicans and persuadable Trump voters later to just assent to the inevitability of his succession. I think that was the wrong way to go about it. There's probably 25% of the Republican Party that's Trump and Trump only. And then there's another 25% that's not Trump at all. And then there's this vast middle that's probably more Trump than not, but persuadable. You can argue them out of it. But they haven't really tried to present that case. And it's the bigger pool of voters. So in retrospect, obviously, it's easy to say this, but it probably would have made more sense to begin from a place designed to accumulate as many Trump skeptical voters as possible, because you're running against Donald Trump, right? And then a smaller coalition than Donald Trump's for sure, but a formidable one that looks like a sizable minority that can translate into a majority. On paper, it would be much more menacing to Donald Trump's dominance of the GOP than what Ron DeSantis presently has in the national polls, certainly, and even in the state-level polls in Iowa and New Hampshire, where he's a little bit closer. So it's a whole strategic approach that we could argue about.
Yeah, and his failure to do that allowed Vivek Ramaswamy to come in and do some approximation of that and generate a lot of enthusiasm because of his, his facility with the language and his energy and his youth and so on and so forth. And so that starts to create more traffic on Ron DeSantis' road, doesn't it?
It does, but they're very different. In policy terms, they didn't draw very many distinctions between them, Vivek Ramaswamy and Ron DeSantis. They agreed more than they disagreed, and they certainly didn't get into very many engagements. But if it's a contest between Ramaswamy and Ron DeSantis, Ramaswamy certainly has the power of personality. Maybe he has the power of persuasion. It doesn't work on me. But Ron DeSantis has the organization, and if I were to bet, I would put my money behind organizational strength in a contest like a primary race. Yet to be determined. Honestly, DeSantis' opponents better hope that his campaign is already over, that there's no coming back, because the way they just handed him last night, unmolested, allowing him to hit single after single without going after his base of strength at all, if he's not dead, they're going to miss this opportunity that they passed up to really ding him.
Noah Rothman, senior writer, National Review, author of The Rise of the New Puritans, Fighting Back Against Progressives' War on Fun. Noah, thank you as always.
Thank you. Appreciate it.
Thank you. And he joined us on our turnkey.pro answer line.
It's news, opinion, insight. This is Chicago's Morning Answer on AM 560. The Answer.
Ask any old football player or fan, and they'll tell you offense wins games, but defense wins championships. Sean Thompson here, and you know who else knows that. It's Tom Fortino of Alpha Wealth Group. He knows winning doesn't just happen. It's a result of having a good coach who draws up the right strategy and then makes adjustments along the way. So think of Tom as your retirement defensive coordinator, protecting your retirement savings against inflation, market loss, or a pick six from Uncle Sam. With Tom's complimentary retirement roadmap, you'll find out what's working in your game plan or what's not. If you're serious about winning in retirement, call 630-934-1855. Ask for the retirement roadmap. That's 630-934-1855. Or find Tom online at alphawealthgroup.com and listen to the Alpha Wealth Hour right here on AM 560 The Answer, Saturday mornings at 9 a.m.
Advisory services through Retirement Wealth Advisors, LLC, RWA, an SEC registered investment advisor. RWA and Alpha Wealth Group are independent of each other. Insurance and annuities offered through Alpha Wealth Group, licensed in Illinois.
Dan Proft here. Excuse me. Now the best time to drive home in your next Mazda. During the season of Discovery Sales Bench, you'll get the biggest savings on a new or pre-owned Mazda. And what you see is what you pay. With limited time sales going on right now, there's no better time to buy at Wilkins Mazda in Elmhurst. And by the way, we thank them for being the title sponsor at our debate watching party last night at Chicago Prime Italian in Schaumburg. Good event.
Yes.
Great.
And
great
I love
fun.
AJ, the manager, owner there.
He's the best.
Yeah.
Yeah, he's the best.
He was very attentive to your needs, Dan.
He does.
Mr. Proft, what can I get you now?
Yeah, another Tito and soda over here.
And I'm like, can you fill up my water bottle, please, without ice?
Somebody get the drunk at the end of the bar another drink. Thank you. Yeah. But not really, though.
No, you weren't.
No. I just don't want to give the wrong impression.
Yes, please. We run a clean shop here, folks.
Wilkins Mazda, that's why Wilkins Mazda and Elmhurst sponsored it. Lease a 2023 Mazda CX-30 for $249 a month, or a 2023 Mazda CX-5 for $399 a month for 36 months, with approved credit through Mazda Capital Services for qualified buyers. Just add license, title, tax, and the $324.24 dock fee. Plus, stop in today and ask about their all-new 2024 Mazda CX-90. And to keep your Mazda running great all year round, schedule your next service appointment right online at WilkinsMazdaCars.com. Wilkins Mazda is conveniently located in Elmhurst off York Road and 290, just minutes from Oak Brook downtown.